yourself, Aruna Roy and some others have created a want to enter civil services to have a second thought on whether they have to join civil services. Your take on that? And the second question is about what you said. You said what is right. Okay. One example that I would like to quote from the government of Karnataka was the introduction of a legislation saying helmets should be made necessary. And there's also saying that people get what they deserve. And people really went against it. They did not want to wear helmets, while the intention of the government was to reduce road accidents. Now, what can be done? People get what they deserve.
Was to raise Abraham Lincoln and also raise the ideal that the Republican Party has, which you said, man is a political being. If I have to recall one of the most incisive analysis made by one of our stalwart leaders, that every political reform has to be preceded by a social reform. And I think my question also has a connection to his question, where unless there is a social reform where people demand change and people understand that they are political beings, how would you think that the ideal that the Republican Party has set can be realized in a country like India?
Well, no, that certainly is one of the ways you can make a difference and contribute to the nation building, but not the only way. This whole notion of a hierarchical civil service where your point of entry determines your future is completely wrong. It's the legacy of the British. And also a generalist, all-purpose civil service. You could be head of a cooperative bank today, you could do industrial infrastructure tomorrow, you could take care of irrigation the day after. It's an absurd notion in this day and age. So there must be a fundamental transformation in the nature of civil services. And I'm one of those in the forefront of this fight. I was with the Administrative Reforms Commission, and in many ways the Commission's reports reflect my views. That there must be greater specialization, there must be lateral entry, there must be competition and choice at every stage of the career. And the best minds must be able to enter if you continue in technology field. But 15 years later, you acquire enough expertise about the country and application of the technology for the country's cause, then you must be able to enter the civil service for a defined period to serve in a particular capacity to make a difference. That's the kind of very flexible, porous civil service that we build, not this rigid, inflexible, totally insulated, permanent priesthood. But ultimately, no matter how much you can accomplish as a civil servant, the country is not shaped by the civil services. It's one of the great myths, because we have invested this IAS with these mythical qualities. We somehow thought that that's an answer to all our problems. There is no substitute to great leadership. Whatever the field. India is the only country that was united by peace. Sardar Patel took just 250 days to integrate 540 princely states, except in the state of Hyderabad where he was sitting. There was no violence involved anywhere else. Even here, only 5 people died in the police action in September 1948. In 250 days, more than 500 more or less independent princely states were integrated into independent India. Not because of a civil servant or a bunch of civil servants, because we had exceptional civil service is a good horse, or it can be a good horse. It's the rider that determines the direction, the pace, and the evenness. And therefore, there are so many bits in society. There's exaggerated respect for one organ of state or one group, and in some ways anti-democratic. Having said that, we require some of the brightest people in public service, but not necessarily in a hierarchical mode with a point of entry determining your future. So you'll all have a chance to shape the future of India if you have the will. But some of you may choose to enter today, some of you may decide to do it after fulfilling some of your dreams and then coming in parallelly, making a huge contribution to India. Law. In some ways, the other question also, societal change or political change, which precedes which. 2,500 years ago, another great man, Plato, he wrote about the Republic. It's a classic of all time. He believed that if philosophers were kings and kings of philosophers, then there's no need for the laws, because after all, the philosopher knows what is best. But the same Plato, years later, wrote a far more important treatise, the Laws. Because by then he realized a philosopher may not become the king. In fact, most often philosopher will not become the king. B, if indeed a philosopher does become a king, he may not remain a philosopher as a king. We know only too well. Even Mahatma Gandhi, if he is given tyrannical powers, in time, he will no longer remain a philosopher. And C, even if a philosopher does remain, even if a king does remain a philosopher, alone his capacity to bring understood that laws are required. So this chicken-egg situation, which is first, it doesn't answer the problem because they have to both go together. If Abraham Lincoln had to wait for the people of the South and their hearts to be transformed, we probably would have had a world of slavery even today. So the people fought for libertarian and republican values with their blood. That was an extreme case. A democratic constitution gives you a fantastic opportunity to bring about such a change without blood and warfare. A constitution is a means of peaceful democratic transformation. There are always forces of modernity. There are always obscurantist forces. You cannot convert all 100 people in one direction. In Andhra Pradesh, nobody don't know about it. But there are people who, even if they respect Lok Sabha, some of them loathe it, because after all, if a fellow is making 10 crores a year, illegitimately, why would he want Lok Sabha? So if my business is to make everybody love me, then I would fail. I'm doomed to failure. My business is to move society in a direction that is desirable. I don't care a damn if I'm loved. I care a great deal whether what we're doing is right. And therefore you convert the vast majority in that direction, and you make a human fellow realize that there is life beyond the temporary death. And none of us is immune to the laws of nature. And your own chair will be the next victim. It is not really your altruism or your nobility that makes you look at things more sensibly. Let's say you finish your IIT graduation, you do some masters or management or something else, make millions of rupees, fulfill many of your dreams or so you think, and then you build a great fortress around yourselves. But the mosquito that bites that little child in the neighborhood slum will still enter your house, no matter how well you are fortified, will still bite you or your child, will still give you the dengue fever contracted from that child, and therefore your child is as prone to mortality or morbidity as any other child. Because you know what? Mosquitoes are truly socialist. Mosquitoes do not respect rank or education or wealth or status. They are truly socialist. But what's required is a capacity to combine individual goals and societal needs. One is not at the cost of the other.